Nadia, we need to talk. Kyle's somber tone instantly put me on edge. His usual confident demeanor was replaced by a nervous energy I'd never seen before. My stomach churned as I watched him pace back and forth in our living room, avoiding eye contact. "What's going on, Kyle?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "You're scaring me." He finally stopped pacing and faced me, his eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and determination. "I've been seeing someone else. Her name is Trina, and she's 27. The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt like I couldn't breathe, like the room was spinning around me. "What?" I managed to choke out, tears already welling up in my eyes. "I'm sorry, Nadia. I never meant for this to happen, but I can't deny my feelings for her any longer. I want a divorce so I can be with Trina." Anger and betrayal coursed through my veins. How could he do this to me? To our marriage? I wanted to scream, to lash out at him, but I knew I had to keep my composure. I couldn't let him see how much he had shattered me. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, my voice eerily calm. Kyle shifted uncomfortably. "A few months. I'm sorry. I know I should have told you sooner, but I didn't want to hurt you." A humorless laugh escaped my lips. "Well, you've certainly done a great job of that." I stood up, my legs shaking beneath me. "If you want a divorce, then fine, but don't expect me to make this easy for you." "Nadia, please, I never meant to hurt you. I can't help how I feel." I held up a hand to silence him. "Save it, Kyle. I don't want to hear your excuses. You made your choice, and now you have to live with the consequences." I walked out of the room, my heart breaking with every step. I made it to our bedroom before I collapsed onto the bed, sobs racking my body. How could he throw away everything we had built together? How could he choose some young mistress over me, his wife of 8 years? As I lay there, crying until I had no tears left, a new emotion began to take hold. Rage. I wasn't going to let Kyle and his mistress get away with this. I was going to make them pay for what they had done to me. I sat up, wiping away the last of my tears. I had a lot of work to do if I was going to get my revenge. But first, I needed to find out everything I could about this Trina. I reached for my phone and dialed the number of a private investigator I had used in the past for work. "Hello, this is Nadia. I need you to dig up everything you can on a woman named Trina. I don't have a last name, but she's 27 years old and she's sleeping with my husband. I want to know everything about her, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem." As I hung up the phone, a small smile played on my lips. Kyle and Trina had no idea what was coming for them. They may have shattered my illusion of a perfect marriage, but they had also awakened a vengeful resolve within me. And I wasn't going to stop until I had made them both pay for their betrayal. It had been a week since Kyle's bombshell confession, and I was still reeling from the betrayal. But I refused to let myself wallow in self-pity any longer. I had a plan, and I was determined to see it through. The private investigator I had hired, Mike, had been working tirelessly to uncover everything he could about Trina, and today he had finally come through with some juicy information. "Nadia, you're not going to believe this," Mike said as he sat across from me in a small coffee shop. "Trina is engaged to her long-term boyfriend, Derek." I nearly choked on my coffee. "What, are you sure?" Mike nodded, sliding a folder across the table to me. "Positive. They've been together for 5 years, and they're set to get married next spring." I flipped through the pages, my eyes widening with each new piece of information. Not only was Trina engaged, but she had also been lying to Derek about her whereabouts and activities. It was clear that she was playing both him and Kyle, using them for her own selfish gain. A slow smile spread across my face as I realized the implications of this information. Kyle thought he was leaving me for his true love, but in reality, he was just another pawn in Trina's twisted game. "This is perfect," I said, closing the folder with a snap. "Kyle has no idea what he's gotten himself into." Mike leaned back in his chair, studying me carefully. "What are you going to do with this information, Nadia?" I took a sip of my coffee, my mind already racing with possibilities. "I'm going to bide my time. Let Kyle think he's free to be with Trina while I gather more evidence. And then, when the time is right, I'm going to expose her for the lying, manipulative bitch she really is." Mike nodded, a glint of admiration in his eyes. "You're a force to be reckoned with, Nadia. Remind me never to get on your bad side." I laughed, feeling a sense of power and control that I hadn't felt in a long time. "Trust me, Mike, you don't want to see what happens when someone crosses me." Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into my work, using it as a distraction from the pain of Kyle's betrayal. I played the role of the dutiful wife, agreeing to Kyle's demands for a divorce and pretending to be devastated by the loss of our marriage. But behind closed doors, I was a woman on a mission. I continued to gather evidence against Trina, piecing together a damning case that would expose her true nature to the world. I knew I had to be patient, to wait for the perfect moment to strike. But as the days turned into weeks, I could feel my resolve growing stronger with each passing moment. Kyle thought he had won, that he had escaped our marriage unscathed. But he had no idea what was coming for him. He had unleashed a vengeful side of me that he never knew existed, and now he was going to pay the price for his betrayal. As I sat in my office, staring at the growing pile of evidence against Trina, I couldn't help but smile. She may have thought she was untouchable, but she had no idea who she was dealing with. I was Nadia, the woman who had been wronged, the woman who refused to be a victim any longer. And I was going to make sure that Trina and Kyle both paid for what they had done to me, no matter what it took. The day had finally come. Kyle and I were standing in front of a judge, ready to finalize our divorce. I had played my role perfectly, pretending to be the heartbroken wife who was reluctantly agreeing to end our marriage. But inside, I was seething with anger and anticipation. I knew that this was just the beginning of my plan, the first step in making Kyle and Trina pay for what they had done to me. As the judge droned on about the terms of our divorce, I couldn't help but steal a glance at Kyle. He looked smug, like he had won some great victory. Little did he know, I was the one holding all the cards. "Do you, Nadia, agree to the terms of this divorce?" the judge asked, snapping me out of my thoughts. I nodded, my voice steady and calm. "Yes, Your Honor, I agree." Kyle smiled, reaching out to shake my hand. "Thank you, Nadia. I know this hasn't been easy for you, but I appreciate your cooperation." I forced a smile, trying not to recoil from his touch. "Of course, Kyle. I just want what's best for both of us." As we walked out of the courthouse, Kyle turned to me, his eyes filled with a mixture of pity and relief. "I hope you know that I never meant to hurt you, Nadia. I just couldn't deny my feelings for Trina any longer." I nodded, my jaw clenched tight. "I understand, Kyle. You have to follow your heart." He smiled, patting me on the shoulder. "I'm glad you see it that way. I hope we can still be friends for the sake of our history together." I fought back a laugh, knowing that he had no idea what was coming for him. "Of course, Kyle, I'll always care about you no matter what." As he walked away, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Kyle thought he was free, that he could start his new life with Trina without any consequences. But he had no idea what I had in store for him. I pulled out my phone, dialing Mike's number. "It's done," I said when he answered. "The divorce is finalized. It's time to move forward with the next phase of the plan." Mike chuckled on the other end of the line. "I've got to hand it to you, Nadia. You're a master at playing the long game. Kyle and Trina won't know what hit them." I smiled, feeling a sense of power and control that I had never experienced before. "They messed with the wrong woman, Mike, and now they're going to pay the price." As I hung up the phone, I couldn't help but reflect on how much my life had changed in such a short amount of time. Just a few months ago, I had been a happily married woman, content in my life and my love for Kyle. But now, I was a woman on a mission, driven by a thirst for revenge that consumed my every waking moment. I knew that some people might see me as crazy, as a woman scorned who had lost her mind. But I didn't care what anyone else thought. I knew that I was doing what I had to do, what was necessary to make things right. Kyle and Trina had destroyed my life, had taken everything that I held dear, and now I was going to make sure that they suffered the same fate. As I walked out of the courthouse, I couldn't help but smile. The pieces were falling into place, and soon, very soon, Kyle and Trina would know the true meaning of karma. They had no idea what was coming for them, but I did, and I was going to savor every moment of their downfall. I sat in my car, parked across the street from a quaint little cafe. Mike had called me earlier, saying he had uncovered some damning evidence against Trina that I needed to see for myself. As I watched the cafe entrance, I couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the chance to finally expose Trina for the lying, manipulative bitch she really was. Suddenly, I saw her. Trina walked out of the cafe arm in arm with a man who definitely wasn't Kyle. I grabbed my camera, zooming in to get a better look. It was Derek, Trina's fiancé, the man she was supposed to be marrying in just a few short months. And there she was, openly cheating on him with yet another man. I snapped a few photos, making sure to get clear shots of Trina and her latest conquest. As they walked down the street laughing and flirting, I couldn't help but feel a sense of disgust. How could someone be so selfish, so willing to hurt others for their own gain? Trina had no regard for the people she was using, the lives she was destroying in her wake. As I watched them disappear around the corner, I knew that I had to act fast. I needed to get this evidence to Derek to show him the truth about the woman he was planning to marry. I pulled out my phone, dialing Mike's number. "I got the photos," I said when he answered. "Trina's not just cheating on Kyle, she's cheating on her fiancé too." Mike let out a low whistle. "Damn, this girl is even worse than we thought. What's your next move?" I thought for a moment, my mind racing with possibilities. "I need to get this evidence to Derek. He deserves to know the truth about Trina before he makes the biggest mistake of his life." "I can help with that," Mike said. "I've got a contact who knows Derek. I can make sure he gets the photos and the truth about Trina's schemes." I nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. "Thanks, Mike. I don't know what I'd do without you." As I hung up the phone, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Trina thought she was untouchable, that she could use and discard people as she pleased. But she had no idea who she was dealing with. I was Nadia, the woman who refused to be a victim any longer. And I was going to make sure that Trina paid for every lie, every betrayal, every heart she had broken along the way. I started the car, pulling out into traffic with a sense of purpose. I had work to do, evidence to gather, and a plan to put into motion. Trina may have thought she was in control, but she was about to learn the hard way that actions have consequences. And I was going to be the one to teach her that lesson, once and for all. As I drove through the city streets, I couldn't help but smile. Trina's web of lies was about to come crashing down around her, and I was going to be the one to light the match. She had no idea what was coming for her, but I did. And I was going to savor every moment of her downfall, every second of her humiliation. Trina had messed with the wrong woman, and now she was going to pay the price. And I was going to make sure that price was steep, no matter what it took. It had been a month since my divorce from Kyle was finalized, and I had been carefully laying the groundwork for my revenge. I had let Kyle believe that he was free to be with Trina, that I had accepted our marriage was over and moved on with my life. But behind the scenes, I was putting all the pieces in place to bring Trina's house of cards crashing down around her. And today, I was going to set the final stage of my plan into motion. I walked into the upscale restaurant where Kyle and Trina were having lunch, my head held high and a smile plastered on my face. As I approached their table, I could see the surprise and unease in their eyes. "Nadia, what are you doing here?" Kyle asked, his voice tight with tension. I smiled, sliding into the empty chair at their table. "I just wanted to congratulate you both on your new relationship. I know how happy you must be together." Trina narrowed her eyes, clearly suspicious of my motives. "That's very kind of you, Nadia, but I think it's best if we keep our distance, given the circumstances." I nodded, my smile never wavering. "Of course I understand, but I just wanted to let you know that I bear no ill will towards either of you. In fact, I wish you all the happiness in the world." Kyle and Trina exchanged a glance, clearly unsure of how to respond. I could see the unease growing in Trina's eyes, the sense that something wasn't quite right. "Well, thank you for your kind words, Nadia," Kyle said, his voice strained. "If you'll excuse us, we have some things to discuss." I nodded, standing up from the table. "Of course, I won't keep you any longer. But before I go, I just wanted to give you a little gift, Trina. Consider it a token of my appreciation for making Kyle so happy." I reached into my purse, pulling out a small envelope and handing it to Trina. She took it hesitantly, her eyes narrowing as she opened it and pulled out the contents. Inside were the photos of Trina with her other men, the evidence of her lies and betrayals. I watched as the color drained from her face, as the realization of what I had done sank in. "What the hell is this?" Kyle demanded, snatching the photos from Trina's hands. I smiled, my voice calm and steady. "Those are photos of your beloved Trina with some of her other conquests. It seems she's been quite busy, playing you and her fiancé Derek for fools." Trina's eyes widened, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "This isn't what it looks like," she stammered, her voice shaking. "I can explain." But it was too late. The damage had been done, and the truth was out. Kyle looked at Trina with disgust, his eyes filled with anger and betrayal. "How could you do this to me?" he demanded, his voice rising with each word. I left my wife for you, and this is how you repay me? Trina shrank back in her seat, her eyes darting around the room as if looking for an escape. But there was none. She was trapped, caught in the web of her own lies and deceit. I watched as the scene unfolded, a sense of satisfaction washing over me. This was what I had been waiting for, the moment when Trina's world would come crashing down around her. As Kyle stormed out of the restaurant, leaving Trina alone and humiliated, I couldn't help but smile. My plan had worked perfectly, and Trina was finally getting what she deserved. She had thought she could play with people's lives, use them for her own gain without consequence. But she had underestimated me, underestimated the power of a woman scorned. And now she was paying the price for her actions. And I was going to make sure that price was steep, no matter what it took. The day had finally come. The day when Trina would face the consequences of her actions. The day when she would learn the true meaning of karma. I stood outside the police station, a sense of anticipation building in my chest. I had given the authorities all the evidence I had gathered against Trina, all the proof of her lies and betrayals, and now they were going to bring her in for questioning, to confront her with the truth of what she had done. As I watched the officers lead Trina out of the station in handcuffs, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. She looked defeated, her once perfect facade crumbling under the weight of her own deceit. Nadia, what the hell is going on? Kyle demanded, rushing over to me with a look of confusion and anger on his face. I turned to him, my voice calm and steady. What's going on is that your precious Trina is finally getting what she deserves. She's been lying to you, to Derek, to everyone, and now she's going to pay the price for her actions. Kyle shook his head, his eyes wide with disbelief. This can't be happening. There must be some mistake. I laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the air. There's no mistake, Kyle. Trina has been playing you for a fool, using you for your money and your status. She never loved you, never cared about you. You were just another pawn in her game. As the realization sank in, I could see the pain and betrayal in Kyle's eyes. He had thrown away our marriage, our life together, for a woman who had never truly cared for him. I'm sorry, Nadia, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I never meant to hurt you. I thought Trina was the real deal, that she loved me. I shook my head, feeling a twinge of pity for the man who had once been my husband. She didn't love you, Kyle. She doesn't know how to love anyone but herself. And now she's going to learn the hard way that actions have consequences. Just then I saw Derek approaching, his face a mask of anger and betrayal. He had received the evidence I had sent him, the proof of Trina's infidelity and lies. How could you do this to me, Trina? He demanded, his voice shaking with rage. I loved you, I trusted you, and all this time you were just using me. Trina looked up at him, her eyes filled with tears. Derek, please. It's not what you think. I can explain. But Derek shook his head, his jaw clenched tight. There's nothing to explain, Trina. You lied to me. You cheated on me. And now you're going to face the consequences of your actions. As the officers led Trina away, I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure wash over me. I had done what I set out to do, had exposed Trina for the lying, manipulative bitch she really was. And in doing so, I had found a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in a long time. I had taken back control of my life, had refused to be a victim any longer. As I walked away from the police station, I couldn't help but smile. Trina had thought she could get away with her lies and betrayals, had thought she was untouchable, but she had underestimated me, had underestimated the power of a woman scorned. And now she was paying the price for her actions. Karma had finally caught up with Trina, and I had been the one to set it in motion. And as I looked to the future, I knew that I was ready to move on, to start a new chapter in my life, a chapter where I was in control, where I refused to be anyone's victim ever again, a chapter where I could finally be free. It had been 6 months since Trina's arrest, and the dust had finally settled. The once confident and manipulative woman was now a shell of her former self, her carefully crafted world crumbling around her. I had kept tabs on her through my contacts, watching as she faced the consequences of her actions. She had lost everything, her fiancé, her reputation, her freedom. And now she was facing the harsh reality of life behind bars, a fate she had never imagined for herself. But Trina wasn't the only one facing the fallout of her lies and betrayals. Kyle, too, had been caught in the crosshairs of her deceit. He had lost his job, his savings, his entire life as he knew it, and now he was struggling to pick up the pieces, to rebuild what Trina had so carelessly destroyed. I saw him one day, sitting on a bench in the park near our old apartment. He looked defeated, his once proud shoulders slumped in despair. "Kyle," I said, approaching him cautiously, "how are you holding up?" He looked up at me, his eyes filled with pain and regret. "Nadia, I'm so sorry for what I did to you. I was a fool, blinded by Trina's lies and manipulation. I never meant to hurt you." I nodded, feeling a twinge of sympathy for the man who had once been my husband. "I know, Kyle, but you made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I just can't believe how stupid I was. I threw away everything we had, everything we built together. And for what? A woman who never loved me, who was just using me for her own gain." I sat down beside him, my voice gentle but firm. "You have to forgive yourself, Kyle. You made a mistake, but you can't let it define you. You have to learn from it, grow from it, and most importantly, you have to move on." He looked at me, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "You really think I can do that? After everything that's happened?" I smiled, nodding my head. "I know you can, Kyle. You're stronger than you think, and you have people who care about you, who want to see you succeed. You just have to be willing to put in the work to start over and build a new life for yourself." As we sat there in the park, talking and reminiscing about the past, I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure wash over me. I had gotten my revenge on Trina, had exposed her for the liar and manipulator she truly was. But more than that, I had found a sense of peace within myself. I had learned that I was stronger than I ever knew, that I could survive even the darkest of times. And as I looked to the future, I knew that I was ready to move on, to start a new chapter in my life. A chapter where I was in control, where I refused to be anyone's victim ever again. I stood up, offering Kyle a hand. "Come on, let's go get some coffee. I think we both could use a fresh start." He took my hand, a small smile playing on his lips. "Thank you, Nadia, for everything. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm grateful for it nonetheless." As we walked away from the park, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope for the future. Trina may have tried to destroy us, but in the end, she had only made us stronger. And now, we were ready to face whatever challenges life threw our way, knowing that we had the strength and resilience to overcome them. Karma had finally caught up with Trina, and justice had been served. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly free. 5 years had passed since the fateful day when Trina's lies and betrayals had been exposed, and life had gone on. I had rebuilt my world piece by piece, creating a new existence for myself that was filled with purpose and meaning. I had started my own business, a small boutique that catered to women who had been through tough times. It was my way of giving back, of helping others find the strength and resilience that I had discovered within myself. And as I watched my business grow and thrive, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. I had taken the worst moment of my life and turned it into something beautiful, something that could make a difference in the world. But even as I moved forward, I couldn't help but wonder about Kyle and Trina, about what had become of them in the years since our paths had diverged. And then one day, I saw him. Kyle, looking older and warier than I had ever seen him, walking down the street with a bag of groceries in his hand. I approached him cautiously, unsure of what to say or how to act. "Kyle," I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. He turned to look at me, his eyes widening in surprise. "Nadia," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. "I never thought I'd see you again." I smiled, feeling a sense of warmth and compassion wash over me. "How have you been, Kyle?" "It's been a long time," he sighed, setting down his groceries and running a hand through his graying hair. "I've been better," he admitted. "After everything that happened with Trina, I lost everything. My job, my savings, my self-respect. I've been struggling to make ends meet ever since." I nodded, feeling a twinge of sympathy for the man who had once been my husband. "I'm sorry, Kyle. I never wanted things to turn out this way for you." He shook his head, a rueful smile playing on his lips. "It's not your fault, Nadia. I made my choices, and I have to live with the consequences. I just wish I had been stronger, that I hadn't let Trina manipulate me the way she did." I reached out, placing a hand on his arm. "You can't change the past, Kyle, but you can learn from it, grow from it, and you can start over, build a new life for yourself that's filled with purpose and meaning." He looked at me, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "You really think that's possible? After everything that's happened?" I smiled, nodding my head. "I know it is, Kyle. Look at me. I've rebuilt my life, created something beautiful out of the ashes of my past, and you can do the same. You just have to be willing to put in the work, to start over and build something new. As we stood there on the street, talking and catching up on old times, I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure wash over me. I had moved on from the pain and betrayal of my past, had found a new path forward that was filled with hope and possibility. And as I looked at Kyle, I knew that he could do the same. He just needed someone to believe in him, to give him the push he needed to start over. I reached into my pocket, pulling out a business card and handing it to him. If you ever need anything, Kyle, don't hesitate to call me. I'm here for you, no matter what. He took the card, a grateful smile playing on his lips. Thank you, Nadia, for everything. I know I don't deserve your kindness, but I'm grateful for it nonetheless. As we parted ways, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope for the future. Life had thrown us both some tough challenges, but we had survived them, had come out stronger and more resilient than ever before. And now we were ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing that we had the strength and courage to overcome any obstacle that stood in our way.